My name is Elena Robinson, 27 years old from Des Moines, Iowa. I thought a $99 DNA test would be a fun way to trace my roots. Instead, it exposed a billion-dollar lie, a family that erased me, and a father who paid to keep me hidden. Now I'm the secret they can't bury. Before we dive into this unbelievable journey of secrets, betrayal, and one woman's fight to reclaim her truth, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story that'll leave you questioning everything. We upload at least 3 times a week. Now, let's begin. It started as a joke. I'd gotten the Ancestry DNA kit during a white elephant gift exchange at the office Christmas party. Everyone laughed when I opened it. Elena's about to find out she's descended from Vikings, someone joked. I played along, grinning, thinking it would be funny to confirm I was 98% corn-fed Midwestern. I wasn't looking for family secrets. I wasn't looking for anything, really. But the thing about digging, even in fun, is that you can still hit something buried. A few weeks later, on a lazy Saturday morning in Des Moines, I opened the app to check my results. European, mostly Irish and German. No surprises there. Then I clicked the DNA Matches tab, and that's when my stomach dropped. There, near the top of the list, was a name I didn't recognize. Ronald K. Eastman, predicted, parent/child, extremely high confidence. I stared at the screen, assuming it was a mistake. Maybe there'd been a mix-up at the lab. Maybe someone hacked the system. Maybe there was another Elena Robinson out there and this whole thing was some kind of digital fluke, but it wasn't. The app included a family tree builder. Ronald Eastman had a profile. It was sparse, no photo, just an age, a location, and a few distant relatives. But then I saw it, Des Moines, Iowa. The same city I'd lived in my whole life. The name hit me like ice water. Eastman. Everyone in Iowa knows the Eastman family. Real estate moguls. Their names on buildings, charity galas, even the downtown art museum. Ronald Eastman was practically Iowa royalty, but I'd never met him. Never even seen him in person. So how the hell was he showing up as my father? I slammed the laptop shut and paced the apartment. Mark Robinson, my dad, wasn't flashy like the Eastmans. He worked construction. Coached Little League. Grilled burgers in the backyard every Sunday without fail. He'd raised me. Taught me how to ride a bike. Walked me down the aisle at prom. He was my father, except, according to science, he wasn't. I didn't call anyone. I didn't ask my mom. I didn't breathe a word. Not yet. Instead, I started Googling. Ronald Eastman was 62. Owned most of downtown. 3 times divorced. One daughter, Julia Eastman, born the same year as me. I looked her up, too. She was picture perfect. Blonde, polished, Ivy League. I recognized her from charity pages and society wedding posts. We'd never crossed paths, at least not knowingly, but we had the same jawline, same almond-shaped eyes, same dimple that only showed when we smiled too hard. My world shifted in that moment, not like an earthquake, but like standing on ice and hearing it crack beneath you. I didn't know what it meant yet. Or what I was supposed to do with it. All I knew was everything I believed about who I was, about where I came from, just collapsed with one line of digital code, and something deep inside me whispered, this is only the beginning. I couldn't stop staring at the name, Ronald K. Eastman. It echoed like a curse and a clue at the same time. Everyone in Des Moines knew the Eastmans. You couldn't walk downtown without seeing their name chiseled into limestone. Eastman Tower, Eastman Plaza, even Eastman Park on the Riverwalk. Ronald was a local titan. Old money with new connections. They said he had the mayor on speed dial and the governor on his golf schedule, so what was his DNA doing tangled up in mine? I started digging, at first, just online. News articles, tax records, property filings. Ronald Eastman owned more square footage in Des Moines than the city itself. High-rise condos, strip malls, renovated warehouses. He was the silent landlord behind nearly everything. Then I found something more personal, a grainy society photo from a spring charity ball 3 years ago. Ronald Eastman with his daughter, Julia, on his arm. She was stunning, sharp-chinned, and polished like glass. And next to him, he looked proud. Not in a warm fatherly way, but like she was a product he was showing off. Legacy on display, the caption said she was 27. So was I. That dimple of hers, his in mine, mocked me from the screen. That night, I sat alone on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling through her Instagram. Perfect brunches, perfect vacations, perfect life. Raised in wealth. Groomed for more. While I grew up scraping together FAFSA paperwork and walking to class in the Iowa wind, we were two sides of a secret neither of us had asked for. I called my mom, I needed answers. She didn't pick up. I texted, need to talk. Important. Now. No reply, so I kept going. I searched my own birth certificate, something I hadn't looked at in years. It listed Mark Robinson as my father. But the signature at the bottom looked off. Almost. Traced. Like someone had written it over another name. I took a photo, zoomed in, enhanced it. The ghost of a different signature lay beneath the ink. That was when it hit me. My entire life, the Sunday dinners, the softball trophies, the bedtime prayers, was sitting on top of a lie someone worked very hard to bury, and the man behind it? He was still living in the tallest tower in Des Moines, looking down on all of us like a king. But I wasn't going to stay in the dark, so I made a decision. I'd find a way inside Eastman Tower. See him in person. Look him in the eye. Because if Ronald Eastman thought I was going to vanish quietly into my working-class roots while he paraded around with his real daughter, he was wrong. The DNA didn't lie. And I was done pretending I didn't want to know what else they were hiding. She didn't open the door right away. I stood there in the bitter wind, coat unzipped, heart pounding like it was trying to climb up my throat. My childhood home looked smaller than I remembered, peeling shutters, dead mums by the porch, the same screen door with the rusted spring that always snapped shut behind me. When she finally opened it, my mom didn't look surprised, just tired. Elena, she said flatly. I need to talk, I replied, voice cold and unfamiliar. Now. She stepped aside. I walked straight past her into the living room, the same room where I once played with Barbies and did algebra homework. Everything looked the same. Except now it all felt false. I turned to face her. Who is Ronald Eastman? She flinched. Just barely. Then she sat down on the edge of the couch like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. Where did you hear that name? She asked. I didn't hear it. I matched with him. DNA doesn't lie, Mom. Her eyes welled. You weren't supposed to know. Not supposed to know that the man who raised me isn't my father? That you lied to me my entire life? That I have a billionaire father living across town who doesn't even know I exist? She didn't answer, so I kept going. I found my birth certificate. It's been altered. And now I find out this man, this powerful, connected man, might be my real father? What the hell happened? And then the dam broke. She told me everything. Back in the mid-90s, when she was 23 and working reception at a local bank, she met Ronald. He was older, charming, and already married. She swore it wasn't meant to happen, but it did. An affair. A pregnancy. And then everything spun out of control. He offered her money. Not just to go away, but to make me disappear, not literally. But on paper, he wanted it erased, she said, tears falling freely now. He said I could keep the baby, but only if he never had to hear from me again. Not a letter. Not a call. Not a threat. Or else he'd make sure I regretted it. How much did he pay you? I asked, the words feeling like poison in my mouth. Enough to move. Start over. Enough to convince Mark to put his name on your birth certificate. I stared at her. You told him I died. She nodded once. I told him I lost the baby at 5 months. I had to, Elena. He made me promise. He said if anyone found out, he'd ruin me. Ruin you. I wanted to scream. Cry. Tear the curtains off the windows. But all I could do was whisper, "So you built a life on a lie." My life. And she didn't deny it, she just sat there, weeping into her hands. I couldn't be in the same house with her after that conversation, so I left, no shouting, no goodbye. Just walked out into the icy Des Moines wind and didn't look back. 2 days later, I drove across town to the place that always felt more like home anyway, my grandmother's. She'd passed away 6 months earlier. Sweet, stubborn Grandma May, the only one in the family who never treated me like an afterthought. She left the house to my mom, but no one had touched the basement since the funeral. It was full of dusty boxes, old Avon catalogs, and decades of untouched secrets. I went down there looking for quiet. Instead, I found the truth. It started with a wooden chest tucked behind a stack of Christmas lights and rusted tins of sewing needles. Inside were photo albums, yellowing receipts, and a bundle of letters wrapped in faded blue ribbon. They weren't addressed. No stamps. Never mailed, but I didn't need a return address to know who wrote them. The handwriting was sharp and slanted, deliberate. Masculine. And the first line of the top letter hit me like a freight train. "Susan, if you're reading this, I need you to remember our agreement. You said no contact. You promised. But if this gets messy, I'll have no choice but to protect what's mine. I'm already securing things on the legal end. My mother's name." And his threat, the letter didn't mention me by name, but every word dripped with the fear my mother had carried in her eyes when I confronted her. Securing things on the legal end? What the hell did that mean? I read through them all. 6 in total. Each one more chilling than the last. Ronald wrote like a man obsessed, not with love, not with guilt, but with control. He referenced lawyers, hinted at financial arrangements, even name-dropped someone at the county records office. One letter ended with, "Make this disappear, or I will. For both your sakes." I sat on the cold concrete floor, hands trembling, staring at ink that had somehow survived 2 decades in hiding. My grandmother must have found them. Maybe my mother tried to throw them out. Maybe she just forgot. But Grandma May was no fool. She tucked them away, like she knew someday I'd need them, and now I had proof that Ronald didn't just walk away from my mother, he bought her silence. And made threats to enforce it. The image of the powerful businessman, the father who never knew, started to shift in my mind. He did know. Maybe not everything, but enough to be dangerous. Enough to cover his tracks. He erased me on purpose. And suddenly, I wasn't just a secret, I was evidence. It's funny how easy it is to lie when the truth is all you've ever wanted. I stood in the marble lobby of Eastman Tower, wearing a navy blazer I borrowed from a friend and a fake smile I'd rehearsed in the mirror. The leasing office receptionist offered me a clipboard and a bottle of water. "You're here to view Unit 1807? She asked. I nodded. Elena Scott. Just moved to Des Moines for work. She didn't need to know I lived 15 minutes away. This wasn't about renting a luxury condo. It was about walking the halls my blood helped build, and seeing her up close. Julia Eastman. I'd memorized every filtered photo of her online. The charity events, the horse shows, the carefully posed brunch shots. But pictures couldn't prepare me for the real thing. She walked into the leasing office mid-tour, wearing all black, phone to her ear, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. The receptionist lit up when she saw her. "Miss Eastman. Back from Chicago?" Julia offered a polite nod. "Just visiting. Daddy's tied up in meetings all week." Her voice was sharper than I expected. Clipped. Businesslike. But when her eyes passed over me, she paused. For half a second, we locked eyes. It felt like looking into a mirror tilted sideways, similar, but unfamiliar. Her brow furrowed. "Do I know you?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I don't think so. I'm just looking at a unit." She tilted her head slightly. "You from around here?" "Moved here for work," I repeated, keeping my voice steady. "Just checking out options." Julia's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing else. She turned to the receptionist. "Dad's expecting someone later." Make sure security knows. Then she walked past me, heels clicking like punctuation marks. The leasing agent continued the tour, but I barely heard a word. My mind was still reeling from that one look, calculation, confusion. Maybe even recognition. She knew something. And I wasn't ready to push yet. After the tour, I lingered in the lobby. Julia hadn't left the building. I could feel it. She was watching. Or at least, waiting. I slipped into the elevator alone, hit the top floor out of instinct. It opened to a private vestibule. A single door. No number, Eastman residence. I stood there for a long second, then turned around before the security cameras got suspicious. That night, I combed through every article I could find on Julia. Honors student. Debutante. Board member. No mention of siblings. No scandal. Clean as a whistle, too clean. I thought I was the only one with secrets. But Julia Eastman wasn't just a polished public figure. She was hiding something, too, and whether she knew it or not, we were both standing on the same crumbling foundation. I wasn't looking for it, not directly, anyway. I was combing through old property records, cross-referencing Eastman land deals with county filings, when I stumbled on the name of their longtime estate attorney, Franklin J. Cordell. The name rang a bell. My grandmother once mentioned him when gossiping about the Eastmans, said he was the kind of man who could bury a body with paperwork and still send you a fruit basket. So I paid him a visit. I wasn't expecting much, just hoped to rattle the cage a little. But when I told him my name was Elena Eastman, not Robinson, his eyebrows twitched before his expression stiffened into lawyer-grade indifference. I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about, he said, but I saw it in his eyes. Recognition. And fear. I'm not here to threaten anyone, I said carefully. I just want the truth. I know there was an agreement between my mother and Ronald. I found his letters. And I know there's something in his will. He stared at me for a long moment, then let out a breath that sounded more like surrender than cooperation. He didn't confirm anything. But later that night, a package arrived at the mailbox of the friend's apartment I was crashing in, no return address. Inside was a photocopy of an official amendment, stamped and signed, dated July 1996. In the event that a daughter, born in the calendar year 1996, is discovered to be biologically mine, she is to receive an equal inheritance as my other children, as outlined in Exhibit A, no name, just unnamed daughter. Me, I read the paragraph a dozen times, heart hammering in my chest. It was real. Binding. Legal. The document was notarized, witnessed, and buried, likely under years of newer amendments and thicker walls of secrecy, but it still counted. Ronald Eastman had acknowledged, in writing, the possibility of my existence. He'd protected himself, not from scandal, but from me. From the fallout that might come if I ever stepped out of the shadows. And the kicker? The language was ironclad. The clause couldn't be revoked without proof the child didn't exist, which meant that while they all pretended I'd died in the womb, I'd been quietly guaranteed a piece of the Eastman empire, and now, the lie they built to protect their legacy was the very thing putting it at risk. I wasn't after their money. I didn't care about the penthouse views or the lakeside estates, but the principle, the truth, that was mine, and I was done asking politely for it. The email subject line read, "Truth comes at a price. You ready to pay it?" No sender name. No message body. Just one attachment, a zip file named Eastman_proof.zip. I stared at it for a full minute, torn between opening it and deleting it. It could be malware. A trap. Or maybe, just maybe, it was exactly what it claimed to be. I opened it. Inside were folders. Labeled by year. By account. By name, Eastman Holdings. Shell companies. Consulting fees. Hush payments, hundreds of files, photos, scanned documents, even audio clips. At first, it was overwhelming. Then I found one marked 1996_CONFroom.wave. I clicked play. Ronald's voice, unmistakable, crackled through the speakers. "Susan is taken care of. She's not going public." I gave her enough to disappear. We don't mention it again. Another voice responded, older, rougher, you sure she didn't keep anything? Ronald, she wouldn't be that stupid. The baby's gone. That's all that matters. Except I wasn't gone, and now I had their voices saying exactly what I needed to hear. Whoever sent this knew everything. Things even my mother didn't know, or wouldn't admit. There were scans of offshore account transfers, property deeds under dummy names, and a spreadsheet of political donations that looked more like a bribe ledger than campaign support. My stomach turned as I scrolled through folder after folder of evidence so detailed, so dangerous, it made my skin crawl, and the last file, a photo, me, from just a few days ago, standing outside Eastman Tower in that borrowed blazer. Zoomed in. Blurry but unmistakable, someone was watching me, whoever they weren't just handing me ammo, they were pushing me toward a target. I sat frozen in the dark, laptop glowing like a spotlight. It was too much to process, too much to hold alone, but one thing was clear, someone wanted Ronald Eastman exposed. Badly. Was it Julia? She'd looked at me like she knew something, or was it someone inside the Eastman empire, an assistant? A former partner, a jilted ex, maybe even Franklin Cordell. Maybe he felt guilty. Maybe he wanted to burn it all down without lighting the match himself. Whoever it was, they handed me dynamite, and I had a decision to make. I could go public. Leak the entire file. Blow the Eastmans sky high, or I could keep it close, use it as leverage, see how far the cracks went before the whole thing shattered. Either way, the time for quiet was over. They thought they erased me, but now, I held every dirty secret they'd buried for decades. And someone out there wanted me to use it. I hit send at 3:12 a.m. The email went to Rosa Navarro, one of the last real journalists in Des Moines. She'd written exposés on corrupt developers, city hall payouts, and once took on a police union scandal that nearly cost her career. I'd followed her work for years. Attached to the message was everything from the blackmail folder, edited for clarity but untouched in truth. Audio files. Transaction records. Hush payments. And the will amendment naming an unnamed daughter born in 1996. Subject line, you wanted your next big story. Here it is. I didn't sleep after that. By sunrise, the article was already in motion. Rosa replied with one line. Meet me in 2 hours. And bring your birth certificate. She didn't ask if it was real. She already knew. The story dropped online first. The headline was simple, brutal, and unforgettable: real estate royalty or criminal empire? The secret daughter Ronald Eastman tried to erase. Within minutes, it spread like wildfire. By noon, the Eastman name was trending nationwide. Local news trucks camped outside Eastman Tower. City council members scrambled to distance themselves. And Julia, polished, perfect Julia, posted a statement on Instagram. I am shocked and devastated by the revelations. I had no prior knowledge of my father's actions and fully support the investigation. No denial. No defense. Just silence from Ronald himself, and just like that, the cracks I'd seen began to split wide open. But not everyone saw me as a whistleblower. My mother called 3 times, left voicemails through tears. You don't understand what you've started, Elena. They're dangerous people. Please. Please don't do this. And then the message from my cousin Brent, short and sharp, you embarrassed the whole family. Hope it was worth it. Even Mark, my dad, texted, this wasn't your story to tell. But they were wrong. This story was mine from the moment I was conceived and swept under the rug. From the second my mother traded silence for safety. From the day Ronald Eastman signed that will amendment, hoping no one would ever find it, let them turn their backs. I'd lived in their shadows too long. The real shock came later that evening, an unlisted number. A man's voice. Controlled. Cold, Miss Robinson. Or should I say, Eastman. You've made a lot of noise today. The kind that gets people hurt. Be careful. Then he hung up. It wasn't a threat, it was a promise, and still. I didn't flinch. They wanted to scare me back into silence, but they underestimated what betrayal does to a person, how fire carves steel. I wasn't going away, not this time. The Eastman name used to silence rooms. Now it only sparks whispers, apologies, and closed doors. A week after the story dropped, Ronald Eastman resigned from every board he sat on. His legal team scrambled, but the damage was done. Lawsuits filed. Investigations opened. A full IRS audit. The man who once looked down on Des Moines from his tower was now being dragged through the mud of the city he thought he owned, and me, I was finally breathing air that didn't feel borrowed. I didn't take the inheritance. Rosa asked me if I planned to sue, to claim the millions I was legally owed. But I said no, I never wanted their money. I wanted the truth, and I have it now. It lives in every article, every broadcast, every screenshot of my father's signature beside hush payments and property fraud. It lives in the emails flooding my inbox from women saying, "Your story helped me leave," or "I checked my records because of you." It lives in me. I legally changed my name back to Elena Robinson, not because I was ashamed of where I came from, but because I earned that name. That life. That history. The Robinsons may have failed me in some ways, but they never erased me. Not like Ronald tried to. The final time I saw Julia was in court. She glanced at me, gave the smallest nod, half apology, half respect. There was no sisterly reunion. No shared embrace. Just mutual acknowledgement. We were never going to be family. But we'd always share blood. And now, a history too. I walked out of that courthouse and into a world I finally recognized as my own. I launched a digital consulting agency last month, Traceroute, specializing in privacy protection and family data integrity. Turns out, there's a growing need for it. People want to know where they come from. And sometimes, they want to know what's been hidden. I help them find it, because I know what it's like to grow up on a false foundation. To think your roots are solid, only to find they've been swapped, sold, or buried. I've learned that the truth doesn't just set you free, it teaches you how to build. The Eastmans can keep their towers. I'm building something stronger, something honest, because the girl who was erased. The girl they paid to disappear, the girl who was never supposed to know who she really was, she didn't just survive, she rose. And now, no one gets to rewrite me again. If this story gripped you, don't leave just yet, hit like. If you believe truth always finds the light, subscribe for more real-life inspired stories of betrayal, survival, and power, and drop a comment below. What would you have done in Elena's place? Have you ever uncovered a family secret that changed everything? Your voice matters. Your story might be the next one we tell.